After the excitement of European games over the last 2 weekends, we're now back to the URC on some festive fixtures. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. These fixtures are a little bit spread out. We have, starting Friday, December the 27th, we have, all of these are going to be local derbies. So we got Glasgow versus Edinburgh in the Scottish Derby. It's 2nd versus 5th. So these two teams both riding high. But, one of them is really going to, get a good boost to their chances of staying up there at the top of the table by winning this one. Glasgow, I think, generally in the last few years, they've been the stronger of the two teams. Edinburgh have had runs of success, but then, they've kind of fallen away. Whereas Glasgow have been up there near the pointy end, at least for most of the season. And I think that's going to continue here. I think Glasgow are going to win this one. Glasgow, they've lost. Both teams have the same record over the last 7 games. Actually, they've won 5 of their 7 games, but I think Glasgow's wins have been a little bit more impressive, although Edinburgh's performance, I think, has been certainly up on last year, and that's good, I think, for Scottish rugby, that they've only got 2 teams. They need both of them to be competitive, obviously, to feed into the national team going into the Six Nations as well. But yeah, I think Glasgow are going to win this one. Next time we have one of the Irish derbies, also on Friday. Both of those games, by the way, kick off at 7:35 GMT. So this is Ulster versus Connacht, is 7 versus 8. Both of these teams kind of similar trajectory this year. They had decent starts to the season, but they fell off, in recent weeks, and including in their European games as well. They Ulster did kind of bounce back to win. Connacht, though, look like they're already out of the Champions Cup, honestly, at this stage. Ulster kind of hang in there. They've got, one win out of their 2. But they both lost the last 2 in the URC, and they both won like 4 of the first 7 games as well. So very similar records. I think home advantage is going to play out in Ulster's favour in this one. Connacht, they're so unpredictable, but I just feel that Ulster, there has to have been some harsh words. I know there have been harsh words in the media from McFarlane towards his own squad. So I imagine, there's a lot of kind of, honesty happening in their squad at the moment. At least I hope there is, in terms of those guys having to turn things around. Whatever is going on with them, they don't seem to be like a settled squad in terms of like being happy about what they're doing and putting in the requisite effort, etc. So hopefully that's been happening, and we're going to see a response from them. Connacht, as I said, just completely unpredictable, but so it's certainly possible they could win this one, but I'm going to back Ulster. Next, then we're on to two games we have actually on Saturday, December 23rd. So first of all, the Italian derby, so Zebre Parma versus Benetton. This one is a 1 o'clock kickoff, so an early game. Probably won't get to see it, honestly, with that one, because I'm actually going to be in work, so I'm definitely not going to see it. Hopefully I'll be able to pick up a replay of it, but I am spending time over Christmas with family, which means that I won't get to watch actually that much rugby at all. But Zebre in 14th, Benetton in 6th. Zebre obviously much improved compared to last year. They have a win and a draw, which they didn't win the entirety of last season, so that's already a big plus for them. And wouldn't they love to get one over on Benetton and actually beat them as well? But Benetton, they've only lost once this season. They do have one draw themselves as well. That one against Munster, where they probably should have won, actually. And, the thing really about Benetton I've noticed is that they're not really picking up bonus points. They're winning games, but not by huge margins. And that gives Zebre at least a chance in this one if it's going to play out the same way. But I think that Benetton will have too much for them, and Benetton will take the win in the end. But I imagine Zebre are probably going to pick up a losing bonus point, and just to try and maintain that kind of position of 14th. Finishing 14th for them would be a massive step forward, because they've always propped up the table in recent seasons, and if they can get like one place or two places above that, it shows progress, and something for the future to build on as well. Next, then we have a South African derby. This is the Stormers versus the Bulls, like the two most competitive teams that we've seen in the URC era, at least. Stormers, champions 2 years ago, where they actually beat the Bulls in the final, and also the beaten finals last year. Bulls have made the knockout stages in the last two seasons as well. So these two teams, I would say they kind of feel like they belong in the top 8. Stormers are outside of it at the moment. They're in 10th place. Bulls up there in 3rd. The Bulls have kind of had, they've definitely been the best of the South African sides, but without really hitting top gear yet. But I feel like, they're, in terms of their performances in the European competitions in the Champions Cup, they're improving there as well. I think the Stormers too, like having beaten La Rochelle in that epic game. And I said before the game as well in my preview that I thought it was going to be a game where it would, not announce the South African teams, because they're obviously there last year, but just kind of solidify the fact that they belong in that competition. I truly believe that, because they're going to bring more competitive games than some of the teams, or the teams from certain nations as well, that have been in the competition for a long time. So the fact that they're going to be competitive against the likes of La Rochelle means that they're going to be involved in classic games like that one. I think that's going to be one that people will talk about for a long time. But back to this one, it's URC again for these two. Stormers, they had that run of 4 defeats, and they then, they got themselves a win to kind of give themselves a boost going into Europe. They did win their opening 2 games in this competition as well. Bulls have only lost twice. They've actually won the last 2 on the bounce, but they haven't yet, at least, gone more than 2 games without having a loss. It was basically win-loss, and then a couple of wins, a loss, a couple of wins now. So this would be their longest winning run so far, at least in the competition. But Stormers at home, I have a feeling the Stormers, they are hitting form, and I think they're going to edge this one. But the Bulls are probably going to pick up, maybe they definitely get 1 bonus point, whether it's going to be try or losing bonus point, and probably get themselves 2. But they'll also, if the chance is there to take the win, and they've shown this season that they can really do that. But there's been a big kind of difference between home form and away form for them too, so that's something to factor in there. But yeah, I think probably the Stormers are going to take the win there. On to then Tuesday, December 26th, so St. Stephen's Day here in Ireland, or Boxing Day if you're in the UK. So 3 o'clock kickoff is a Welsh derby. It's Cardiff versus Dragons. So Cardiff in 12th place, Dragons in 16th. Cardiff were the best of the Welsh teams last year, which qualified them for the Champions Cup for this season. They now know that that's not going to be enough for next season. They're going to have to finish in the top 8 of the URC to actually qualify again into that competition next year. I think that's a good step forward for the Welsh teams and for the competition as well, because it means that teams are basically qualifying completely on merit rather than kind of setting aside places just based on geography. But also for the Welsh teams, it means it's going to drive them to strive harder to actually qualify. Cardiff, they're a young team. They're shown though that those guys, they do have a lot of potential in that squad, and if they can keep that squad together and just keep them developing, I think this could be we haven't had a Welsh team anywhere near even near the knockout stages in a while, but anywhere near looking like they're going to win this trophy. But this Cardiff team, there is the potential there that in a couple of seasons' time, they could do what Munster did last year, and if they develop properly, be up there. Maybe not win the competition, but making the knockout stages would be a step forward. Getting to semi-final or final would be absolutely amazing for them. But at the moment, they're at the beginning of that journey. The Dragons, they're then in 16th. I have not been impressed with them at all this year, honestly. Like, some of the performances have been good, but we talked about it before, under Di Flanagan, they had that bounce last year when he took over initially, but that's kind of long gone now. Like, the honeymoon period is over for that, and now it's a case that the Dragons' performances are nice, but you need to get results, you need to get points on the board, and they're absolutely not doing that. And potentially, if Zebre keep performing the way they are and picking up points, even if they're not going to win many more games, Dragons could be cut loose at the bottom there, and that's not where you want to be. So in this one, I think that I'm leaning towards Cardiff winning. And when we look at kind of the form, so this year Cardiff, they've only won 2 games and 1 draw, and they've got 4 defeats, but Dragons have only got 1 win and they have 6 defeats. So I think going for Cardiff is a decent bet on this one, and I'm going to back them to win there. Next, then we have another Welsh derby. This one a little bit later on in the day. So this is a 5:15 kickoff. It's Scarlets versus Ospreys. So Ospreys at the moment are the highest placed of the Welsh teams. They're just above Cardiff, but Ospreys, Cardiff and Scarlets are all pretty close together. So winning this one, potentially, depending on what happens between Cardiff and Dragons, the Dragons pull off a surprise, Scarlets could actually leapfrog both Cardiff and the Ospreys in terms of getting themselves a pole position, at least between the Welsh sides. But I still feel somebody has to emerge from that pack and get up there and really mix it with the other teams from the other nations as well, closer to kind of those playoff places. So getting up there into the top 10 at least, and then trying to break into that top 8. Scarlets, at times have been decent. They obviously show a lot of ambition with ball in hand, but they've shifted some massive defeats as well. And that comes down to their defence. I'm not going to blame players' work rate or whatever. It's just, it seems the system with the defence. Other teams have kind of figured it out, and they've been able to put a lot of points on them. So that's something that they've got to sort out, because it's nice that when you get the ball, you're able to throw it around and play with ambition, etc. But if you're scoring 2 or 3 tries, but the opposition are getting like 5, 6 or whatever, you're never going to get a win. So they need to tighten up on defense, but not necessarily have that kind of reduce their ambition, because we see that they are very dangerous on turnover ball as well. I think tightening up that defense would mean that they would create more turnover ball for themselves and actually create more attacking opportunities too. So let's hope that they can actually work on that and get that going for them. Ospreys, they probably the most consistent of the Welsh sides this year. They've got 3 wins, which is more than any other Welsh team. They have also got 4 defeats. So no Welsh team kind of has a positive win-loss ratio this year. Scarlets with 2 wins, but they are coming on the back of a win, albeit like now 3 weeks ago. But still, that's decent enough for them, because up to that point they were down there near the Dragons, near the foot of the table, so they're beginning at least to climb. And this, if they could get a win here, I think that would really kind of help them in terms of looking up the table rather than down the table. I think that's for a lot of the Welsh teams, that's kind of the mindset you have to have, is that you're not looking at who's coming behind you. You have to be looking up at to who can we overtake next and move up the table. So in this one, even though Ospreys have been the most the more successful or most successful of the Welsh teams so far this year. I think Scarlets are probably going to take the win in that one. Next, then we have like a massive game. It's basically the big Irish derby, and that's Munster versus Leinster. It's at Thomond Park. It's fourth versus first in the table. So putting aside first of all how massive it is in the context of the Irish provincial game, also in the EuroC, like fourth versus first is always a big game anyway, no matter who the two teams are. But then add back in the fact that it's Munster, Leinster, like two traditionally big rivals. You want those bragging rights really over the holiday period, over the Christmas period and the New Year period, to say, yeah, we beat you, and it doesn't matter. Even if Munster beat Leinster and Leinster is still top of the table, Munster fans will still be the happier of the two teams on the back of that. But and we look at their form first of all. So Munster have they've been a bit patchy for like defending champions. Like, they started with a win and then they had a draw against Benetton, which you were kind of lucky to get. And since then they've gone win, loss, win, loss, win. So no real kind of consistency in terms of results for them. Whereas Leinster, they lost, the opening game against Glasgow, and since then it's been 6 wins on the trot, so they'd be looking to make it 7 out of 8 for them, or 7 on the bounce, against a Munster team who, recently Munster, they've been starting games really well and getting themselves in good positions, but then second half, I don't know what's going on with them, like, because it didn't happen to them last season. So it's not like I don't think it's a system thing. It can't be a fitness thing, because these boys, they're pretty fit. Compared to Leinster or any other EuroC team, I wouldn't say like, oh, the Munster players look really unfit compared to them. I'd say they're kind of around the same level of the top teams in the division. So I don't know what is actually happening with them, whether it's like a mental thing where they're switching off in the second half, or like I have seen, it's something that's happened to Leinster previously as well, but you don't see it often with Leinster, pretty much because they can be so dominant against teams. But Leinster have had this thing, we saw it last year, and against Munster actually last year too, where Leinster have this thing of they start well, and then they build on that and they build on that and they pull away from teams. But if a team can stick with them and into the second half, then if a team can get the noses up front and then get that little bit of an edge going into the final quarter. Leinster last year really struggled with the idea of then being able to switch modes, going from, because a lot of the time in tight games, their defense comes up trumps for them and they actually wins them the game in a tight game. But when the team is able to score, whether it's Munster with the Crowley drop goal last year, or La Rochelle with the try that put them ahead, they find it very hard to then switch the mentality back over to, now we have to attack, now we have to be the ones to force the game rather than stoke pressure. And Munster have had kind of something similar to that this year, except for them it happens earlier in the half. And once a team kind of claws their way back into the game and kind of nullifies that good start that Munster had, and then starts getting ahead of them in the second half, Munster then really struggle with the idea of, okay guys, we've got to go again now. We've got to rediscover the spark that we had in the first half of the game and create the space that we were doing there and get our running lines right and build that pressure and get those scores. So Munster have kind of struggled with that this season. As I said, Leinster struggled with it last season as well. So it's going to be interesting to see which team kind of in kind of the final 30 minutes of the game, I think, is probably going to decide who's going to win this one, who can actually finish the better of the two. Because I'm expecting Munster to have a good start to the game. I'm expecting Leinster to have that kind of period just before halftime and just after halftime where they seem to have that ability to, get themselves scores in that kind of, if you take it as a kind of a 10-minute period, from the 35th minute to the 45th minute, they're very good at getting like a couple of tries in that time. So I'm expecting a close game because of that. And then the final 30 minutes is probably what's going to decide it. And for me, maybe it's my Leinster bias because I'm a Leinster fan, but I'm taking into account the fact that Munster have fallen off recently in those final 30 minutes, that I think Leinster are going to win this one, but it's going to be a tight game. Final mention then, it's not on like this kind of weekend of games, is actually on January 6th, but there is another game in round 8 of the URC, and that's Sharks versus Lions. So I'll talk a little bit about this, but I'll probably do, when we get to January 6th, I'll probably do a preview of this game anyway, if I can kind of fit it in then. But this is 15th versus 9th in the table, and Sharks, they've not been as good as we saw them last year. Like they really are struggling down the bottom of the table, and it is kind of worrying, I would say, in terms of how things are going for them. That here's a team that last year were able to get themselves back into contention in the URC with a late run to the into the top 8, and then be able to get into those quarterfinals. But this season it's just not happening for them. I can see that the performances are improving, but I'm not sure whether it's enough. They might have already left themselves too much to do, because like we're getting close to the halfway stage of the season, and they're decently, I'd say decently adrift of kind of the playoff places. So just a quick look at the table. So you got Connacht there, who are in 8th place, and they're on 19 match points, and then the Sharks down there in 15th with just one win so far this season on 7 points. So that's already a 12-point difference. So it means that basically the Sharks have got to win probably four more games than Connacht or a host of other teams that are around the area. They can't just catch Connacht. They've got to catch whoever overtakes Connacht and gets into that 8th place. So it's a big ask for them, and they've got to have a massive second half of the season, unless they can win their next 2 games. And that's what I'm getting to with this one. This is a great chance for them to kind of put all of the good things that they've had this season, because they've been good on defense, they've been decent in terms of lineouts, they've been right up there as one of the top teams in the stats, but the overall performance and results have just not been there. So this is a chance now against the Lions, who are actually right there in 9th place, and they're actually the team who are looking to leapfrog Connacht into the playoff places at the moment. Basically the Lions are where the Sharks want to be, and the Lions will want, the Sharks will want to beat the Lions and start closing the gap. This is a great chance for them. But looking at the totality of the season so far, Lions, they've won 3 of their 7 games, and as I said, Sharks with just 1 win so far this season. But I'm actually going to back the Sharks in this one. Now, by the time we get there and I do a preview again, I might have changed my mind, but right at this moment, I think the Sharks are probably going to win this one. Okay, so that is the end of our preview for round 8. Some exciting derbies in there, and I think derbies are great in the competition. And I like the way the structure is at the moment, that it allows, for basically home and away derbies every season. I think that's a great thing. But I would love to see home and away against every team as well. But I'm always excited around this time of year, because we do come off the European results. And then this is a period, kind of like I talked about at the start of the season, where, teams have a chance, where maybe players are going to get rested and stuff, to get wins that maybe you wouldn't expect them to get otherwise. And what I said before counts here as well, is that it doesn't matter, who's in the opposition lineup. If you get 4 points or 5 points out of the game, they still count the same as if you got 4 or 5 points against, somebody's, complete first team or whatever. And, when we come to look at the final table, there aren't going to be asterisks beside, people's placing in the tables, because they played weakened teams, or, they won against weakened teams, should I say, over the, Christmas period. So this is a great chance, I think, for some teams to really make moves and just position themselves for a nice run then, at the start of the new year, potentially, when we're going to have disruption as well with the Six Nations too, and players may be unavailable there as well. That, it's a great opportunity for, if you can get your kind of lesser lights, as it were, or your young players kind of knit together as a decent squad and a decent team, and they can go on a run and get you results, and then just put everyone, in the club or in the province or wherever, just in good spirits, then going, heading then towards a run in for the final stretch in the season. That's going to be a big boost, and it kind of starts with this set of fixtures. So it's it's going to be great to see who actually takes that chance and starts that kind of run, and when we look back, in a few months' time, and see teams who were kind of, in the doldrums are suddenly up there challenging. It's around this time that's going to start. So yeah, it's exciting. And, I will try to do some reviews of the games, but as I said, with kind of spending time with family, I may not get to see that many games, and I don't like to review games that I don't actually watch live. Now and again, I'll watch a replay if I don't know the result, but I'll probably know all of the results, but won't be able to watch the games. So, but we will have a roundup at least of the results, probably just chatting to the camera. There won't be any I did game footage previously, which takes a long time, and I'm definitely not going to have that time. But I will have kind of half an hour or so to chat to the camera like this. So look forward to that. Hopefully, hope you guys all have, a wonderful Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, if you celebrate some other, religious festival that happens around this time, enjoy that. If you don't celebrate anything, well, then just enjoy your weekend or enjoy time with friends and family. But overall, just have a great time. And if you do get to watch some rugby, absolutely enjoy it.